What is today? It's the 13th. Ready? Okay, let's call. Let's call the Board of County Commissioners meeting together for Monday, May 13th, 2024. And we will start with citizen input. We do have two people. I believe it. First one is Jerome Jerry Freeland. If you do have 3 minutes, and you can sit up here at the table. And we thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. My name is Dr. Jerry Freilich. I am an aquatic ecologist with PhD in aquatic ecology. I'm retired now from a 25-year career as a scientist in 6 national parks, including 13 years as research chief at Olympic National Park in Washington. I represent this afternoon a group called the Vocal Seniority. We are an indivisible affiliated progressive action group based here in Bend. We have over 300 members. We have a website and all of that, and I'm the webmaster of that group. I'm here to speak this morning.
It's morning in Hawaii, so let's just.
There you go. I just drove in from Portland, so my clock is not exactly home yet. But I'd like to speak to you about the proposed footbridge across the Deschutes River. I have made copies of a map that I produced based on the Deschutes County Land Ownership Database, the DIAL database. So there's no secret information on this map. It's all available to you. I'm also in receipt of the 2015 Bend Parks and Rec report that was done proposing different possible scenarios for this kind of a footbridge across the Deschutes River. And I'm reacting right now to a piece that appeared on KTVZ here this past week, where a citizens group spoke in favor of this proposed footbridge. In fact, our group has done quite a bit of research on this proposed footbridge, starting with going through the Bend Parks and Rec document from a few years ago. And I have concluded, and our group is in agreement, that this footbridge is the wrong idea at the wrong time, and it's just basically impracticable for several reasons that I'd like to relate to you. I know I have a 3-minute time limit. Do you enforce that very strictly?
Oh, very strictly, yes.
All right.
I don't know if we have it online.
Council,
so I've got it on my phone now.
At the end of that time, they get the hook and you're out of there. So I will be brief. The first thing about this proposed bridge is that the Deschutes Park, the Bend Park and Rec people said that their document would be addressing, quote, missing segments of the Deschutes River Trail through the Bend urban area. We find that statement to be incorrect on its face because there are no trails along the Deschutes River that go south of the city of Bend, and the proposed footbridge that we're talking about would be outside of the city limits. So the question of what exactly Bend Parks and Rec was going to do is questionable to us. There is only one place where there is federal land on both sides of the river. All of the other proposals in the Bend Parks and Rec document would require obtaining easements from private landowners. And perhaps those are possible. I don't know whether they're possible or not. But I'm going to address the only place where there's federal land on both sides of the river. I made several copies of this map. And if you look at the red section on the map, that's Deschutes National Forest land. There's only one tiny little triangle of that land on the east side of the river. And it seems to me that that is the only viable location where this proposed footbridge could go. it's at least possible, although it would require the Forest Service to adopt this idea. In that case, it would also require NEPA compliance. And I have a great deal of experience with NEPA compliance, having worked 25 years for the National Park Service. And I just find it unlikely that the Forest Service would put that much effort into this. We also question the fact that that bridge, we have talked to several engineering firms. The engineering firms told us that a standard footbridge can accommodate sections of river up to 250 feet, but that over 250 feet, some sort of suspension bridge would be required, with the required abutments on both banks to accommodate some sort of suspension bridge. We don't see that that little triangle of land on the east bank that belongs to the Forest Service could accommodate a suspension type bridge. Going one step farther, the reason for this bridge proposal is that so folks in Southwest Bend can access Good Dog Park, which is over on the west side. I live in Southwest Bend, and I'm one of the people that might possibly benefit from such a bridge. But here's the thing I want
We're
the
now,
commission.
we're up actually over 4 minutes.
Are we?
Are you going to, yes, we
Well,
are.
okay, let me conclude rapidly. Good Dog Park has been tremendously popular, but it has huge parking lots associated with it on the west bank. I don't see, and our group does not see any place where those proposed parking lots equivalent to the ones on the west bank could be built on the east bank, because there's no public land that could accommodate them. And I'll just stop right there.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Ruth?
Thank you for running the clock. I should have done it myself, and I would.
Well,
myself.
I realized, sometimes we see it on the screen. Okay, and then, it looks like we have Doug White.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. My name is Doug White. I'm retired land use planner. I'm semi-retired, but I can tell you I've been in this game for almost 45 years, 27 years with in charge of the all the other goals besides agricultural, forest, urbanization. So I had all the other goals I was in charge of, goal 5. But anyway, I gave you a handout, but I wanted to go ahead and go through this if I may, and I'll be as quick as I can. Once again, a special interest is wanting local government to support a new bridge on the Deschutes National Forest near the southwest corner of Vance Urban Growth boundary. The desired bridge location is on Deschutes National Forest land, where the Department of Agriculture through the U.S. Forest Service manages all national forest land. The site is within both a state scenic waterway and a federal wild scenic river. The Deschutes National Forest is the federal agency charged with administering the Upper Deschutes Wild Scenic River. The Department of Defense, through the Army Corps of Engineers, issues and administers fill and removal permits within the federally designated corridor. Other U.S. government agencies include the Bureau of Land Management, Bureau of Indian Affairs, our sovereign tribes, and the Department of Interior, through the Bureau of Reclamation, manages the safety and maintenance of Wikiup Dam and coordinates water conservation with the state and irrigation districts. Well, first, the discussion of bridge didn't start 10 or 12 years ago. Rather, it goes back 30 years ago and maybe even further to when the river was actually designated a state scenic waterway in the late 80s under the, well, it was done several ways, but anyway. But really the issue of the bridge goes back more like 30 years. The bridge is controversial when people don't know what the law is and the facts. And I would say this matter was put to bed 30 years ago. But it keeps right. It seems like every election year and every session, this thing comes up again and people want this. But honestly, it's not permitted. Neither is urban development outside an urban growth boundary, or is the conversion of high value farmland to non-farm uses. Those aren't allowed either. But for some reason, they seem to support something illegal. Gets at least proposed in the comp plan. I'm very pleased the Planning Commission saw the wisdom in not including that. I think Commissioner Cyrus described it as too deep a well for them to go and include it in the comp plan update. So with regard to the bed and banks of the Upper Deschutes, it is under a comprehensive management plan. And these things are available online. You can get them available, but, the authorities and jurisdictions of this plan vary greatly. And one of the things that's stated in here, in addition, because of the intermingling of jurisdictions and authorities, no one agency has sufficient authority to independently implement a comprehensive plan for the Upper Deschutes River. Further action, which may result from such plan, could affect downstream resources and authorities and must be coordinated with those agencies to be successful. So this isn't happening. There isn't a coordinated effort. It's City of Bend and Bend Parks, about everything. Like I said, keep throwing this out here. It should be, thank you, but it's just not allowed under state law. So I've gone ahead and attached the actual rules that govern this, and I actually tabulated the actual sections where bridges are not allowed. And actually, they're not allowed in any reach of the Upper Deschutes River. They could have been regulated. They could have been, allowed here, not allowed here, but they're not allowed the entire section. I'd also mention bridges aren't allowed in certain sections of the Metolius, as well. I don't have that here. And if you look at these rules, you'll notice there's land use standards in here. And, there's requirements in other sections of the river. It may not be in the county, but that sets zoning density limits on certain communities. So
I will have you.
am I 4 minutes?
You're at 4 minutes too. I've tried.
Well, I'm
to
about
give it
done. So I've given you a handout. I wanted to also have a copy of the newspaper article back in 1917 when then Representative Gene Wisnick proposed
You
legislation.
mean 2017?
2017. Thank you.
Yes.
And also, the prior speaker mentioned some of the things that were going on out there, and it's interesting. Yes, this bridge is not in the county's jurisdiction. It's in the city. Well, at least trails are in the city, goes to Forest Service, but the parking and the impacts will be in the county. And this map that I given you shows one of the parking places they were hoping to get on Buck Canyon Road. So anyway, appreciate the time.
Thank you so much.
Any questions? Available?
Okay. And we have your phone number on here, so we
You
can
can
call you.
contact me. Have any questions or need anything else? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Let's now go to, anything else? Has anyone raised hands on Zoom, Brenda? No? Okay, good. All right, so let's now go to action item number 1, please.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask my staff to join us. Sure. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Peter Gutowski, Community Development Director. And with me are several of CD's managers, and this is in regards to the Community Development Department's annual work plan. And what we traditionally do before the hearing is allow each division manager to just highlight 1 or 2 accomplishments from calendar year 2023, speak to the work plan, just to provide context. And then the day after tomorrow is a hearing that'll be much more succinct. I'm not asking them to give the same presentation, and we'll transition quickly to anyone who wants to provide testimony. But I just wanted to offer a few remarks before I turn it over to the managers. The Community Development Department has had a dynamic fiscal year with some unexpected changes to our employees and to our lobbying hours. I want to acknowledge that CDD continues to provide, I think, extraordinary customer service to our residents, our builders, and our contractors. And tremendous credit goes to the managers, their supervisors, our staff for adapting to this changing work environment. And it's through the leadership of this management team and our employees that I think gives CDD such an excellent reputation. We're not perfect, but I think we're very, very responsive. So with that as an overview, Wednesday is the public hearing. It's the second item on the agenda. For anybody that might be watching online, the Community Development Department prepares an annual work plan every year. It's informed by the Community Development Department's mission statement. The Board of County Commissioners adopts every year goals and policies that help guide departments throughout the organization. The work plan has different descriptions. The division that sees kind of the most input has to do with planning and long-range planning. You just heard from two representatives or two citizens having strong opinions about the South Canyon Bridge. That's a classic example of a coordination issue relating to transportation planning. We also, in the work plan, are honest about the realities that we're facing both fiscally and operationally. So the three commissioners are very well aware of this work plan. Again, I just wanted to offer those opening remarks, and it being mindful of time, there's two items on your agenda. Our colleague Hallie will be talking about a road dedication momentarily, but if it's okay with the chair and the Board of County Commissioners, I would just respectfully ask for a few minutes just for each manager to engage and talk about their staff and their achievements and kind of where they see their division going in 2025. And then we can open up the questions as you go. And I think it'll allow for a robust conversation, whether at the hearing or during deliberations, to hear your feedback about our work plan. So thank you for giving us this opportunity. And I'll turn it over to Krista.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Krista Appleby, Assistant Building Official. I'm filling in for Randy today.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Kind of on the fly here. Give you some brief stuff on the building safety highlights. We are a staff of 15 right now. We serve development in 3 jurisdictions: rural Deschutes County, City of La Pine, and City of Sisters. The past year, we've had a number of outstanding projects. City of Sisters is getting a new elementary school, which is just about complete. Caldera Springs, second phase of Caldera is growing. They have a Forest House, which is an amazing aquatic complex with some racy water slides. And La Pine is getting its first 3-story building. A great community wellness center. We've also done some work for Deschutes County itself. We have the new transfer station up in Redmond, and also the
That's on Friday in case you want to join us.
and they're opening to operate on Monday. And then the Sun River Public Safety Building is just about completed.
If I could put in another plug for Krista, the other thing that their team does, this is a diversity of projects, but they're also doing the Bend Airport Control Tower, which is, I've asked them to take lots of photos because that's very distinctive. And I think it's a very active airport and you don't see a control tower every day. So our team is working collaboratively, both with Krista's leadership, with plans review, and then looking at inspections that occurred. That'll be another dynamic project that's important for the region.
The tallest in Deschutes County. Rural Deschutes County, yeah.
Oh, but not taller than the tower at Redmond at Robertsville. I've been up that one and they asked me if I wanted to go outside and I said, no, thank you. I'm fine.
We could try again.
Yeah.
Well, so this is the annual work plan, and we'll see to everybody for the budget here in the next week or two also. But yeah, I always think of, the building officials, the inspectors, the credentials that are on board, the things that we need, throughput, being able to respond, residential opposed to commercial. So, I mean, any thoughts along those lines? To say you're filling in for Randy, but what do you see out there?
Our commercial in the cities is growing quite rapidly.
Yeah.
Having been the commercial plans is down
The
in
Pine and Sisters, you're saying? Yeah.
the process of training our current one. So I see we might end up needing a second one at some point if we continue to grow as our
Commercial.
they are, yes, commercial plans. We have some in-house staff that are currently interested in that. We're hoping to pursue that. But we are definitely seeing more commercial pickup for what we do.
Great, thank you.
I'm Angie Hadner, Administrative Manager for Coordinated Services and Code Enforcement. Now, start with coordinated services, and that kind of piggybacks a little bit to what Krista was speaking about. We had 7 permit technicians and 2 administrative assistants. And throughout the year, we had some layoffs and some resignations. We currently have 5 permit technicians. 2 have been there for about 3 years, 1 an average of a year, and 2 we just recently hired in there in training. We did create the permit tech job series for promotional opportunities and student retention. So we went from being able to have just a permit technician to now we separated it to permit technician 1 and 2. We have really we did consider our languages to the community. So we started looking at website updates, language for understanding, for processing, and what Krista was talking about. We are going to continue that this year and next year with improvements to our website. Really thinking about, even as today, we launched a time for processing to the community so people, professionals, owners can get online and look at where we're at with all the departments so they can see how many weeks we're out for processing so they can plan that way. We are going to be continuing looking at staff training and efficiency, just trying to get the permits out the door, customer service. As Peter mentioned, our lobby hours have temporarily changed to allow for at-desk processing to get permits out into the community. That has really been a benefit for staff to be able to work and have the on Friday closed for lunch hours and to get those permits out the door. Any questions on coordinated services piece before I kind of transition to code enforcement?
So is there an evolution of, I don't know, response time or, you know, the customer service level? Because I've got a few calls and I've been handing them off and been communicating a little bit, but, you know, garage permits or electrical permits, we've had a little bit. But yeah, what's the big picture that we can tell folks, you know, what's evolving here?
Okay. So we had, as of this morning, approximately there was 356 applications that had been submitted on our alert portlets. Those are the online. Those are everything from dwelling structures, supplementals, driveway, fire. We are prioritizing those and pulling dwellings and structures first to try to get those out the door for that. That's the intake process to get to be able to be reviewed. We are updating our website with information for PDFs of what they need to upload for a complete application. We're seeing a lot of applications that are incomplete. So they are incomplete, but it takes time to get all of the components that we need for review.
So is there like a third party that can help get a contractor that's just not ready for this or don't want to, you know, I mean, if I was a contractor and I found out there are these new expectations on the electronic portal, is there maybe a third party that can help me get up to speed or something? Because as I say, that's where I think we're having an issue.
So the state has done a lot of implemented some training for one-on-one. We have made some videos and some tutorials also. And then we're still doing the one-on-one training if they would like to come in and be taught how to apply. And then just really direct communication that goes back to the communication publicly of clear language of what we need to get them processing. So I don't know of a third party, but I do know the state is, even Excel is making big efforts on their end. And then we internally have been just websites, tutorials, communication, one-on-one trainings.
And then are we kind of standard with our throughput or do we have more or less capacity, you know, referring to Deschutes County's response? And I'm just trying to get grounded so I can talk to people that ask me.
So we are about 3 weeks out from an application being submitted until it gets to be complete, and then we can send it to the next department. That's the longest we have been right now. Part of that is due to less staff. We are deficient in staff and trained staff. And then part of that is now we have seen an increase in applications.
Yeah, the weather just changed. People are itching all of a sudden. Overnight it changed, I know.
Yeah, and we are grateful we were able to hire staff, but we know that when we hire, it's kind of slow to go fast. So we have to train them, teach them. to get permits on the door. Trying to have robust communication with the community of expectations, timelines. We do the two sets of people, so we're looking at homeowners and then professionals. Homeowners, we are assisting as best we can. We're not as rigid with them. Professionals, we try to teach them to equip themselves so they are aware of what we need when they do submit the first time, versus 9 emails back and forth of what we need to process through the door.
And I would say with Angie's leadership and with the other managers, we are really trying to put out as much information as possible. Our website just today, not only are we acknowledging our choke point, but, you know, for example, rural ADUs, which is a tremendous priority. And we've actually, I think there's now 34 applications, which is to me, I guess I wasn't thinking that we would see that many so soon, but we are. And the team put forth tremendous effort to inform the public. There was not only an open house that each of them helped facilitate and provide information. We had over 100, I think Commissioner Chang, you were there. It felt like we had about 100 people, but we also in the website, if you search rural accessory dwelling unit, it really lays out, you should start with on-site and coordinate with Todd's team. So we take that spirit of getting information out to the public. We are seeing higher and higher numbers for e-permitting, which has always been a priority of ours. It's a goal to have a certain number of electronic submittals. So we remain committed to getting that information out. Even when we are in this period of training newer staff, this is a new era for CDD. The chair, Adair, has remarked in the past, she can remember a time of, you know, when we were kind of coming out of the Great Recession, our staffing in relationship to development activity, you know, this is like early 2010s. And one of the things that we had back then that we don't have now is the staff that we have, or that we had back then, were here for years, for decades. You had tremendous institutional knowledge, and we were able to hire on an on-call basis colleagues who had just retired. And so you would bring back somebody like Dan Haldeman, you know, who led the on-site wastewater division. He would give us 20 hours, but if you really stepped back, that probably was the equivalent of 30 to 40 hours if it was someone who was brand new. So we have there's no criticism or, you know, complaint about this mix. Actually, I think it's a sign of a vibrant organization when you have a mix of the emerging professional with the seasoned staff. But admittedly, in these times that we're experiencing right now, we are training newer staff, both in on-site wastewater, in coordinated services, and we just brought on someone in code enforcement. So it takes us time to get those staff up to speed. And admittedly, over the last few years, just when we train up a year, 2 years, we have seen, and hopefully this doesn't continue in the future, but we have seen employees after just a few years of learning the trade, they decide to move on for a number of different reasons.
Well, we had to kind of ride down the activity level because of inflation and interest rates. And now people want and need to build, and higher for longer interest rates is what people are starting to realize, and we're moving on. Interesting. Thank you.
Code enforcement, pivoting to code enforcement, in 2023, we had 721 new cases. 490 of those cases were resolved.
So that's going the wrong way.
Well, and some of them carry over, right? If they
Right.
started late in the year, they'll carry over.
But
But our cases, our submittals have increased. That is true.
that's that plus 231. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, you're busy.
Yeah, we're busy. We were able to hire an additional specialist, which has been great. He's a couple weeks in. So our lead is training, and he's going to be taking on a caseload Each specialist has an average of 125 properties right now that they're managing. We had a robust partnership with the sheriff's office where we started implementing, as we changed our efficiencies in-house, we included the deputy to help us with site visits, photographs, testimonies. So she's been a robust addition. In addition to that, we, with the Cannabis Advisory Committee money, we've worked with the detectives for the marijuana cases where our team will go out after code does their inspections, then we will go out for work without permits and violations thereafter on those sites. That's kind of success.
Angie, I do have a question
Absolutely.
on page 13 of our packet. It's in red, so I'm thinking that you must, it says achieve case adjudication within XX days of case assignment. So you're trying to determine what you're going to put in there. Is that why it's in red?
Yes, so we are changing our performance measure to see where we fall in that. When the case is submitted to cases adjudicated. So we're working on updating that performance
Okay,
measure.
so
Yeah,
that's why
so
you
that-
got it there.
Absolutely, that's in progress. Yeah, thank you for that.
Oh, I just,
No, I appreciate it. So then, we also did right now we're working for 2024, 25 on a new way to receive complaints. So I'm working with Kim and Naz in our RIT group, and we are going to change the way that we submit. So we'll use the GIS program where people, sometimes they don't know the address. They can go online and find it on the map on dial, pick the address, or they won't transpose numbers, so it's on the wrong parcel. It won't allow submittals. We spend a lot of time, people submit complaints. It's not in our jurisdiction, so that we have to explain it's in a different city of Bend, city of Redmond. So that will save time and efficiency for that, allowing extra photos to be uploaded. So that's a big project that we're working on right now. That will be enacted pretty soon. We will be coming to you with a revision to our solid waste, our abatement code language. We did do our first abatement here in 2024. Lessons learned of that, and so we'll be coming to you with just a few tweaks that we recognize needed to be refined. So those are the big projects. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Todd Cleveland, on-site wastewater manager. So right now we're down, actually a couple of people in my division. I used to have 5 staff, now I only have 3. An on-site specialist 3, and then 2 fully registered environmental specialists, which are on-site wastewater 2s. So they just passed their exams probably in November, I think. So cranking hard, very busy, having our challenges, just stay up because we have over 1,700 O&M records, and we had about 99% compliance with that, which is exceptional, but it takes a lot of work. And Martha Shields retired, and she was primarily taking care of that for us, and we haven't replaced her. So we're trying to find new methods to do that. Come back to that project a little bit here in a little bit. But one of my other accomplishments that I see for us as a department is we've done a lot of repair systems, and part of that was financial assistance programs. We coordinated with CLSD on the Central Oregon Septic Assistance Program, and we provided 17 rebates for nitrogen systems in South Deschutes County. So really provide the financial help for people that were needing to repair or upgrade their septic systems this last year significantly. Repairs can be very challenging at times as well, trying to find solutions for people on sites. So that's a steep learning curve for some of the new staff as well. Part of the O&M program is just continuing to grow as we get more and more alternative systems in Deschutes County, and we have an industry around service providers that go out and check those systems, and they have annual reporting. This is a DEQ requirement for these advanced treatment systems. It's primarily what the nitrogen reducing systems are in South Deschutes County. And it's intended to ensure that those systems are operating and performing properly, and that when something needs to be done, there's a qualified person there available to help out, right? Make sure that system's working and there's annual reporting requirements. As this program grows, it's becoming more and more challenging to stay ahead of it. We have some hopes in the state currently. Clackamas is pretty high, Lincoln County is pretty high, but everyone with a lot of these systems is having challenges. So we're looking for in the next year, we're going to try to coordinate with BQ, look at ways to improve some of the requirements in Deschutes County and possibly in the state to kind of raise the bar a little bit, get better reporting, get better coordination, simplify the reporting process, hopefully do more with electronic information. If we don't do that, trying to track these down on a day-to-day basis is just far too difficult. But it's really critical for the function of these systems. So people spend $30,000 on a system. It's kind of like buying a new car. If you don't ever maintain it, you're going to have problems, right? So it's a really analogous situation. And that also kind of dovetails with the whole South County groundwater issue, coordinating with DEQ, working on different facets of that program to move forward on solutions.
When you were looking, you've got a map in here on page 27, and it actually shows that in 23, it was 1,021 on-site permits issued, and that goes back to 14. I thought that was kind of, which was 1,049. So it definitely dropped off.
Very fast,
Yeah.
yes. Really.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
And in 2014, it kicked off at the beginning of 2014. I think Nick can remember, it was just me and Dan. and so we were having our challenges then as well when we hired on another staff at that year. So it really grew after that.
Todd, do you know what the amount of funding is left? So that was like 64,000 that we contributed to homeowners, property owners. Do we know how much fund? I know we're expecting somebody to go in there, aren't we? That fund?
So for the groundwater protection fund, yeah, I just checked on that right over here because I was worried about that very thing, because
Yes.
we have several repairs that are pending with some financial assistance in South County. We have enough money for about 6, so we only have about 26,000. There are a number of permits that are pending that are in the new neighborhood that would be paying into that fund over time. So I'm real concerned that we could suddenly find ourselves out of money in that fund. It all depends on if we can sell some of the new neighborhood lands and use that for, shoring up that fund. That would be great. So that's my hope.
Thank you.
I mean, I thought we were pretty close with that, at least the 1 acre that we're selling to Habitat.
Yeah, we received, I think that money, I think was provided, but it was, I want to say it's approximately $50,000. So it allows us to, I think, provide some of the rebates.
for a few-
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah.
We've been, as it's come in, we've been using that money really rapidly because of this.
So that's in,
this year.
that's in, and you're drawing it down already.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we at least were able to sell that.
Yes.
I just ask one question. Is the Bend subject to sewer system having any impacts in terms of creating more capacity, or maybe over time, will it take off hundreds? I don't even know what, I can't remember how many it is. Will it have an impact on the department or your division at any point?
We've been doing the decommissioning inspections. There are still repairs in the city of Bend. And when there are repairs in the city of Bend, they're very challenging. Basically, we typically have to do what's called a reasonable repair installation, where we basically it doesn't meet code. We're doing the best we can to get them a functional system and keep them in that house. And that tends to be pretty expensive. So we pursue every option, coordinate with the city of Bend on that process. But yeah, eventually it should reduce those numbers. And that's what I was looking at, the number of reductions in the ATT systems. There's been a few decommissioned in the city of Bend, and then Kegel just got connected and we're fine. And we, I think there were 7 or 8 in there. So there's been a few decommissionings of that O&M program, so it went like this, so it just keeps going. But that's what explains some of those numbers, but exactly what you're talking about.
Just curious.
So you mentioned that we have the most septic systems in the state by county.
The ATTs,
Is that by ATTs?
yes, they're on O&M, the O&M program. We're probably close to Clackamas.
In ATTs.
But just for context, we have like 1,800 alternative treatment systems that we have to monitor, and we get several hundred a year approximately. And then if we were to obtain a environmental community change grant, we're projecting 275 potentially over a 3-year period. So Todd's experience, which is analogous to Angie's experience, which is analogous to Will and the Christas, is that even when our chair pointed to the number of site evaluations, and we're kind of at 2014 levels, but the amount of coordination and monitoring and engagement with our customers who are just exploring opportunities creates tremendous demands. And it is just more complicated now as we kind of fill in that elbow room. And I was talking to Jerry there again about just some of the challenges that come with some of our more contentious land use applications. It's just our environment here in Deschutes County. It speaks to the sophistication, the opportunity, but also the importance of integrating all of these disciplines under one roof. And credit again goes to the managers and to our staff for adapting to these circumstances as we, adjust to those demands and training and trying to be honest and timely with getting out those requisite permits, as an example.
So Todd, for the O&M program, is there enough capacity by private companies out there to do the O&M program, or are we under capacity? It's private industry.
I can see it growing. I've had conversations with a couple of the different service providers, the companies, where they're talking about bringing on a helper or training another person. I see that that's going to be a necessary thing as this growth, just what Peter was talking about. There's going to be too many of these are just going to keep coming. So we're going to need more service providers.
But I mean, in context of the current installed number and the capacity of folks that are out there, I mean, is that a limiting factor, I guess? When we say we're close to 100% of the, O&M records, keeping all that, is that?
I think there's room. It depends on the company, right? And I don't know everything about how they're running their businesses, but I think there's a little growth left.
Yeah, so that's not the limiting factor.
It's not yet a limiting factor.
Or they can all scale up.
Great.
Yeah, good afternoon. Your planning manager, Will Groves. Real dynamic year for planning. Certainly you've seen us a lot recently finishing up the Tunnel Community Plan, the Transportation System Plan update. Of course, we did the Rural ADU program with all your help and really appreciate that. And right now in front of you, of course, the Comprehensive Plan, a multi-year effort that is finished up hearings, is moving through our open record period. Of course, we coordinate with cities on a variety of issues that you can see in that work plan. Like so many of the divisions, of course, we're down in terms of total work and staff. We received 685 land use applications this year compared to in the prior year, as opposed to 895 in 2022. So we're also down as well. We, of course, have a variety of ongoing commitments. The comprehensive plans one. In addition, we've talked about the clear and objective update that came to us through statutory changes. So a lot of my long-range staff working on that right now. We're always looking for housing strategies. Housing's a big deal, and so we're looking for opportunities. Rural ADUs was a big win for that. There's also some things coming up with regard to occupancy standards. It's referred to as kind of a familial statutory language, and we can talk about that. You'll see, of course, every year we've got zoning text amendments. This is our sort of our pinned board of things of look like they need to be either cleaned up or a possibility for new opportunities as well as housekeeping opportunities. And as part of that, we conducted a public hearing process and deliberations with the planning commission. So they took a look at our work plan and had some feedback that they asked that I bring forward to you. All of them were excited about, of the list of things that are in those zoning text amendments. They wanted to be clear that none of them were against any of them, but they did have some things that were relative priorities. So all of them were very excited to see Dark Skies move forward. Right now, that's a project that is it's on, but on, I'm going to say the back burner, maybe the middle burner, as we try to get to clear and objective, which has a statutory deadline of June 30th of next year. They were also interested in housing related items. So the familial definitions, that one's going to be real interesting because it's going to touch on occupancy. Right now, occupancy in dwellings is regulated by family units, and the state has precluded that. And so jurisdictions are trying to decide how to say how many people can be in a house. And there's limits, of course, infrastructure wise with septic. At the same time, there's the questions about trying to, do we want to try to even enforce that? What kind of staffing levels would that take? And how does that intersect with short-term rentals where you sometimes see very large occupancy? So a lot of things intersecting there. There was also a commissioner interested in allowances for childcare facilities in the industrial zones, and also some interest in seeing updates in medical hardship regulations. Continuing interest in agriculture and the farm stand allowances and agritourism opportunities, as well as the outdoor mass gathering standards were of interest to several of the commissioners. And our Chair Williams, our South County representative, was very interested in the Newberry Country Plan update, and of course is concerned with groundwater issues in the area. There were, in testimony that we received on Wednesday, there's one other issue that's likely to come up, and it's an ongoing concern. I think you've heard testimony with it having to do with agricultural exempt buildings. So in some circumstances, you're allowed to get sort of a reduced cost effort permit for constructing an agricultural building. We went through an extensive process years ago to determine how those would be awarded, and they're awarded in the case of farm operations receiving farm tax deferral. So a number of people who are engaged in agriculture are precluded from getting farm tax deferral. So we're continuing to brainstorm about how to get align these structures and the farmers who need them. And you'll likely hear some testimony about that on Wednesday. Those are the main things I was hoping to touch on. Did you have any questions?
I just wondered if I could put a plug in for Jacob Ripper, principal planner here. Howie King is here as well. On page 31 of the work plan, you'll see kind of an overview of what current planning has undertaken in 23 quasi-judicial land use areas last calendar year. And that's just another example of the types of dynamic issues that either
And more than the year before.
Yeah, and some are obligated for the board, others are appealed, but the one I wanted to just acknowledge that was unexpected was the petition for incorporation. Significant amount of resources went into that process. We now have a fee in place if that were to ever happen. Again, but that was duties as assigned, and so credit goes to legal counsel and to Nicole Mardell for evaluating that petition and coordinating with the Board of County Commissioners on the adequacy of that application. But it's like the other divisions, the planning divisions, even though the numbers might be down, if you look at one metric, the demands placed on them with the other divisions continues to be quite up.
Clear and objective standards, you said, working on it. What is the work product now? Because we haven't really done it yet, but we got to prepare it.
Yeah, certainly. So there's two efforts happening simultaneously. So of course we were awarded a consultant from DLCD. MIG is working through the Goal 5 inventory and resources to look at those. Those seem to be, and they're also working on our Title 17, our subdivision partition and road standards. In-house staff is working on Title 18, and so we're looking at definitions as well as the allowances. So basically anything that might come between you and a regulatory path to get to a house or a series of houses to a partition or subdivision. We're looking for any instance of something has to be orderly or suitable or compatible, and trying to explain what that looks
So
like.
it's kind of survey the whole thing right now, just to even size up how much
Exactly.
work needs to be done.
Yeah, right now we're tinkering around in the definition section, so we're getting real close to finishing that up. We're hoping to sort of late summer, to kick off the process and get those updates. I think those will be relatively straightforward. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, uncontroversial as we try to make just more explicit what we were already doing. So I think the goal 5, as we discussed previously, will be real interesting because there's not always a clear way to get the protections apples to apples to, from a subjective standard to a clear objective standard. And as we saw kind of in the discussions with the wildlife update that was conducted and then not concluded in was concluded in the previous year, there was a lot of debate. We were trying to make that clear and objective, and a lot of debate between folks about what was the right way to enact those protections in a way that was clear and objective. So I expect that'll be the heaviest lift of it.
Can I just ask you a follow-up question with that? It's similar to the one I was asking Todd. Todd's was where, as the septic systems have then come offline, does that provide more capacity? But one of the questions within objective standards, there's fewer discretionary reviews. Do you see that having an impact on your staffing or revenues or anything going forward? I think about landscape management. Will that now be clear and objective? I'm just curious, just for our collective benefit, impacts going forward.
I think the goal is that would happen. It'll be interesting to see how it happens because, if you said, let's say you had a neighbor and you decided that you got to have some say over what color painted his house. It's pretty easy to say, well, come and show it to me. That's a discretionary standard, right? If you say that it's got to be one of these 6 shades of brown or this purple, or you have to go through a land use process, it's supposed to make it easier, cheaper, more certain. And I think that's where we're really headed. And at the same time, I don't know that it's going to take a lot out of the cumulative loading on the department. I hope it will, but it's going to depend on how many sideboards in a non-discretionary pattern you put on people, because then you have to explain to them, enforce them. They end up in, code compliance at times. And so you end up with fewer rules, but more rules, but they're more clear, as opposed to hey, let's make sure that this is compatible and allow public process for it to happen. Now you specify what compatible means, but now they have to hit all of those boxes and continue to hit them over time. So it'll have a lot to do with the process. The board, if you think about regulatory processes generally, there's a balance between certainty of outcome. If you want to have a certain outcome, you have a lot of rules. If you have a lot of rules, there's code compliance issues, and it's tougher to apply for them. If you're willing to have less certainty of outcome and say, look, this is generally something that we want to allow, and the fact that some of it isn't exactly what we had in mind, and we're okay with that, you can have fewer rules and less enforcement of those rules. But there's always a push and pull between them. I think particularly people who are, like yourselves, are thinking about how to do this right. There's an inclination to put careful sideboards on it. That shows you're doing your homework, right? That you're thinking about, oh, this could be hard for neighbors. Let's have a rule, but then that rule has to be met. It has to be enforced over time, and it can be cumulatively expensive. So it'll be interesting to see where you have to see opportunities to make things simpler for people, and where, this ends up maybe being more of a wash mix question as they have more but clearer rules potentially.
And all jurisdictions are going through this though, right? And it's not just counties, it's counties and cities.
So the LCD had awarded us, so everyone is subject to it on July 30th, 2025. Everyone who has non-clear and objective rules relating to housing, those rules are potentially stricken. And so if we have a rule right now that says it needs to be safe for the fire department to get there, and we don't instead explain what safe is, it's not that that rule is somehow hindered, it's just stricken. There are now, in that scenario, there would be no fire rules. And so jurisdictions are taking a variety of approaches in association with that. We have, together with Washington County and a few other counties, have gone relatively aggressively, and we've gotten a consultant and said, look, we need to mend these fences in advance and see, make sure that the code works the way that people would expect in 2025. Other jurisdictions are sitting back, and I sometimes envy them. There's a lot to figure out. I want to keep it brief, but the amount of effort that goes into it was surprising to me, and I thought it was going to be substantial even at the outset.
Thank you, Will.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think I said 20 minutes. I think we've probably gone to 40, but I really value this conversation. It happens every year. I'm just continuing, this kind of practice, from, my predecessors. But, I think it's important for the board to hear from the managers about the work plan. And as, looking at Wendy, just with a general smile, the Wednesday public hearing, my opening remarks will be very brief so that we can go right into the hearing. But I greatly appreciate the work session format, just to allow our staff to recap the year before, the calendar year, and just talk about kind of what we're experiencing today and how we're preparing for it in the next work plan. So.
And we so appreciate all of you, honestly. I mean, I just feel like you have to be so nimble and like, okay, what are we gonna do now? And you're an amazing team, and thanks, Peter, for your leadership.
So this is in a draft form now with some red lines. So what does publishing it look like?
So good question, Commissioner. So the hearing's on Wednesday. In the past, you kept the written record open. We would come back in June. You would provide any comments or direction, or reprioritization. And then what we'll do with the red lines, that's an opportunity for us to finalize the report. So for example, the 3 new employees that we have relatively two new permit techs, code enforcement specialists. There's a list of all of our employees and their contacts. We need to add that in. So there's just little revisions. The red lines are for us. It comes out kind of what the budget direction is, and then we'll finalize it and upload it.
And then on page 19, the photo of the joist cut out with the drain in the middle of it. Is that what not to do? When I saw that the other day, I'm like, oh, look at that. Yeah, I bet that was a.
And so is the stair.
Okay, well, so, yeah. See, I wouldn't have known that was the thing.
So what we can do, we'll clarify, the photos that these are.
I thought that was a work of art you were presenting there. What's the?
Inconsistency in the trend.
That's, no doubt. See, I wouldn't know
It
that.
is a work of art.
Yeah, well, that's why.
We're gonna put it step.
Yeah.
Yep.
If I might add one thing, we work with a hearings officer who's worked over his career with a number of jurisdictions. He had a really good compliment for us in the meeting we had recently. He said, in comparison to every other jurisdiction that he's worked with, our staff cares so much that we're doing it right, that we're understandable to people, that people feel like we're being fair shake. And he said that makes it so enjoyable to work with us. And I thought that was really true about my staff. Everybody here really values, people have a relationship to their government, and we're sort of the shock absorbers between a state system and local people, and all of us take very seriously that, that we're here to make that ride as comfortable as possible.
Definitely, yes. So, and it is noticed and it is appreciated. So thank you.
No, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And it was a very wonderful 45 minutes, Peter. Thank you.
Ah,
I don't know what happened to the calendar. It was my first mistake of the day.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to item 2 now.
That's a tough act to follow. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Yes, thank you.
For the record, I'm Kate with Community Development Department. And this next item here is a work session item related to a request for board signature on 3 deeds of declaration.
is this the one that was gonna take 10 minutes instead of the last one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she's going to be really fast.
No rush.
For a road dedication application for a proposed road extending eastward from Cloverdale. And the intersection of Cloverdale is about 0.75 miles north of Cloverdale and Highway 20, just to kind of orient, kind of close to the Forked Warren Estates subdivision. And so we scheduled this item as an action item for this Wednesday, and obviously the work session here is to get board feedback and set the table for the subject application. And just as a brief background, these road dedication applications are reviewed at the staff level, where we provide notice of application to neighbors in 750 feet, as well as road department obviously comments and has input as well. Consult with them greatly on these. And so once the staff decision is final, the appeal period has lapsed, which for this particular one it has. essentially the applicant has 120 days to complete the final steps, which is drafting up the deed dedications and, requesting that the board, accept those deeds. And that'll essentially, and then they record it, and that will be the final legal, recordation of creation of the road, essentially on paper at this point. And so again, for this particular application, staff decision is final, no appeals were received. And really the purpose, and there's exhibits of the kind of, obviously the overview of the dedication in your packet. Exhibit B, off one of the deeds has kind of got the best, I'd say, overview. And the purpose, so the property owner and the applicant is Desert Springs Ranch. They own about 1,000 acres in this general area. And they're looking to, many of their parcels, to the east of Cloverdale Road are essentially landlocked, meaning they don't abut a public road, they don't have road access. So the purpose of this road dedication is to essentially provide future road access and frontage for these certain parcels. And so that's really the purpose. I don't think, currently they access these different properties through different easements. But if they were ever to sell the properties or, pursue a non-farm partition or an irrigated land division, for example, road frontage is one of the kind of step one of do you have that or not? So this is essentially setting up that road frontage for these parcels to the east. And so you'll see in your packet, we have 3 different dedication documents. And the reason for that is there's 3 different property owners involved in the request. And they were all signed the land use application. So which is obviously a requirement for submittal. So we've got 3 different owners, and 2 of the 3 deeds have been signed by the property owners. There's a third, and it's on your dedication map. It's parcel 1, which is owned by Sarah Morton. They are still in negotiations with Desert Springs on her final signature on the deed. And the property owner says that they're essentially coordinating road maintenance agreements with Ms. Morton. They anticipate that they'll get her signature within a few weeks. But obviously we are up against this 120-day timeline by which the board has to accept the dedication. And essentially, so that's kind of the background of why you're seeing one of those deeds unsigned by one of the property owners. What staff is suggesting that would work is, obviously, if the board is comfortable accepting all 3, and the Desert Springs they will need to get Ms. Morton's signature before they could record this. In the event that they are unable to wrap up negotiations, the property owners indicated for that piece along parcel 1, that they could dedicate the full 60-foot width right of way entirely on their property. And if that were the case, we would simply bring back an amended deed for the board to sign or accept. So that was, just to kind of clarify the different pieces there of this. It's a little bit unique. Typically, we do have all the owner signatures when we present this item, but in this case, there's that one that we currently don't have. So with that, obviously I want to answer any questions for the board. And then again, it's in anticipation of bringing this back on Wednesday this week.
So this is just an action item for acceptance. Is it a public hearing?
Correct. No, this isn't a public hearing because the actual review of the dedication is a staff level review. It just requires the board to essentially accept the dedication. And this road is not maintained by the county. It's not constructed by the county. It's all a private matter.
Creating new public right of way, a road next to parcels. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. And the reason that of the northern extent, kind of directly off of Cloverdale, there's actually an existing access easement there. So it's already a disturbed area. It's already disturbed dirt, essentially dirt road. but it's not a formal road. Because the formal process is through the road dedication. But that's why they wanted to align the road on that northern boundary, straddling the two lot lines before it turns 90 degrees south.
And I was saying the other day, it would really be nice if you could do Jordan Road, because Jordan Road comes in off of Highway 20, but it also comes in off of Cloverdale to, I think it's to the north of this area.
Oh,
Anyway, and if you like get on that road, you are not gonna get through. Cause it's like a dirt road from Cloverdale side and, you know, your GPS will send you that way and it doesn't work.
yeah, oh gosh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I learned my lesson.
yeah, and the brain
Yeah.
me too.
No, go over to Highway 20 and then come in that way. Yeah, that was for the ranch that sold for the 16 million.
Okay, okay,
But yeah, you couldn't get in the back way.
oh, okay.
So you think we're gonna be okay then, and legal is comfortable with this plan?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I think, you know, the signing of the dedication deed it's just accepting it, but it's hinging on that property owner. I mean, it
Right.
wouldn't be,
Miss Morgan,
Ms. Morton, yeah, and again, in the event she's, you know, doesn't want to sign, we've got, so it's essentially a plan B, and that would come back to the board so that we can ensure that this road connection makes it to Cloverdale, because that's important
That's-
with this
yes.
application, yeah.
okay. Are there any other questions? Are we good?
All right,
Thank you.
commissioners.
Any other items?
So I'm Christine Bollinger, Michigan County Property Management for the record. So this past Friday, Kim Riley and I received an email from the attorney for Housing Works related to the Simpson transaction. So just to go back a little in time, so we sold the property to Housing Works last June 2023. And since that time, they've been working on their financing package and whatnot, and they're scheduled to close beginning of June, I guess the first week of June. So through that process, when we sold the property, we recorded a restrictive covenant on the property, indicated that all rental units needed to be at 120% or less AMI. And so we recorded that covenant and then we conveyed the property to Housing Works. So what we learned on Friday when we received an email from their attorney is that the funding mechanisms that they're working through with Oregon Housing and Community Services will take a priority over the county's interest in the property. So that housing covenant basically said that the one that we recorded at the time of conveyance to Housing Works basically said that if they didn't use the property in, you know, with the intended use of affordable housing, that the county would have a recourse. We could go, you know, basically force that issue or potentially receive the property back. Probably would never happen, but still we go through that process to make sure that everything's aligned and understood. So this agreement that their attorney then brought forward to us on Friday basically says that the county would be in fourth position. And so ahead of us would be, and this is, I think, all with the Oregon Housing and Community Services Department of the state. So there'd be a low income housing tax credit declaration, and that's basically the, again, that's with OHCS, bond regulatory agreement with OHCS, department operation agreement with OHCS, and then Oregon Affordable Housing Tax Credit Declaration of Land Use Restriction Covenant with OHCS, and then the county would be in the next position. So we just wanted to bring this to your attention. If the property was ever used outside of the intended use of affordable housing, county would be fifth on the list in order to really do any sort of enforcement. So we just wanted to bring that to your attention. Again, these organizations, I believe, are going to ensure that the property is used for that intended use, but we just wanted to bring this to your attention.
Are we in fourth position or in fifth
Or
position?
fifth.
Fifth, okay.
And their restriction is also set at 120%.
Theirs is
Or lower?
at 60%. So whatever the lowest restricted percentage is what the property has to conform with. So their restrictions are 30-year restrictions, where ours is a 60-year restriction. So after 30 years, those could in essence go away, but we would still have another 30-year restriction at 120% after that time period.
So is this truly just for information, or is there a decision about who we want to just remove it? Is that what being proposed?
I don't think we would need to remove it because we would have to be a party to this new agreement with OHCS. I don't think we'd have to remove it. Is that correct, Kim? Right?
Wouldn't remove it.
Yeah. So this new agreement would kind of trump our restrictive
So
covenant.
it's just acknowledging it.
It's more or less acknowledging it
Got it.
unless you would like us to pursue something different. We just wanted to again bring this to your attention.
Well, I'd rather be number one, but I guess advise what we're gonna have.
Nice, so if there's any enforcement that needs to be done, somebody else will do it for us. I think that's a benefit of being number 5.
Kim, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, nothing else to add. It was just also to just bring awareness to the commissioners that when we initially negotiated the sale, the covenant was supposed to be, essentially, or the way the language was written, it would essentially be in the first position. So you are relinquishing that option by agreeing to this new agreement.
Yeah. And then when we kind of did pivot topic a little bit here, when we're still working through the purchase and sale agreement and other documents for the 3.44 acres single pine. So we will vet that out before we come to the board to have a better understanding of what the OHCS what kind of impacts that might have on that transaction.
Okay.
So really it's just acknowledging that position as the business.
So do we need a motion?
I don't believe that that's necessary. I believe Christie has authority to sign the documents relating to the property. So unless you want to give us alternative
No.
direction.
I just wanted to be sure we were good. Great, thank you. Thank you, Christine. Nice to see you. Any other items?
Updates, funny stuff. Last Thursday, I was able to attend one of our road districts, the Two Rivers Special Road District. It's kind of just north of State Rec Road, Whittier and Wolf, and some of the cross streets there. And they were able to put some rock down and get their roads graded, but they're investing in it and they're getting a little bit better over time, which is exciting to see. So I was able to attend that road district meeting. Saturday, all 3 of us were at the memorial for Dwayne Crumey. So he was the Habitat for Humanity director of Thunder River Pine Habitat, who passed away. So we were all.
He and his wife and his daughter all went to Pepperdine. His daughter graduated in '89. Anyway, really nice. And he did such a great job. He had a PhD in English literature, but then he became a banker.
Yeah, he kept going back to school for more and more.
Yes. And then his grandfather actually had worked at the company where Jeff Wolfschlager's grandfather had worked, and he and Dwayne knew his grandfather. Isn't that amazing? Small world. So Jeff said some really lovely, kind words about him. He was such an amazing person for that community.
And then Eastern Oregon Counties Association meeting this morning at 9 o'clock. I was able to attend. It was all remote. Basically, the content was just discussing the proposed budget for this next year. It's about the same as this last year. I think that representation for legislative lobbying is going to be up a little bit. I think that's what the message was. Proposed for $12,500 for the county participation in that. Or is that in our budget at this time, or how do we fund that? I mean, and that's a discussion, but it's been 2-1 in the past, but it's just, it was in their budget that we're gonna be a member again this year.
Pretty confident that we
Our
budgeted, memberships at the same level for
Yeah.
this fiscal year, but we can double check.
So yeah, 12,500 was in there for us as a large, public lands county, Eastern Oregon members. And then really the substance of, what's coming is participating in the June 17th and 18th AOC meetings, which is a big moment for the Association of Oregon Counties. And then following that, some other EOC meeting will be either picking a subset of topics or coming up with different topics for next year's legislative session. So that was kind of, there wasn't any specific topics that we talked about, but kind of the structure of how we'll get to topics for Eastern Oregon alike.
Mr. Jen, do you have anything?
Yeah, I attended the Bend City Council special meeting with Dr. Greg Colbert, the author of Homelessness is a Housing Problem. It was a fascinating discussion. He talked about how it was very challenging for cities, local governments, communities to make progress with bringing numbers of homeless down without affordable and low-income housing being available. Not rocket science, but in the presentation he gave, it was pretty interesting. He did causal correlation analysis with all kinds of factors, and the only thing that consistently showed up from place to place, city to city, as a driving cause of homelessness was housing. So the Building a Better Bend was the sponsor of his visit. They recorded that presentation and made it available for people to view, and I would encourage everyone to take a look at it.
I was able to do my homework in support of that concept coming through. I would say I didn't attend on Friday with it. But there was a video presentation from the city of Boston where he was speaking, and I think you got a feel for the whole scope of what he was talking about. And he had all the statistics and analysis and what's causal and what's not. And I saw the same conclusion, which is exciting because there's a boom and bust cycle for building houses in Central Oregon, the history of Central Oregon in the last 20 or 30 or 50 years. Maybe there's a boom cycle coming to build housing.
Actually,
it's challenging, because he specified that, there, without certain types of housing being available, you won't make progress on homelessness. So, booms can come and there can be a whole lot of market rate housing and you still don't make any progress on homelessness. As we witnessed from the last 10 years of pretty substantial growth in our own community. A whole lot of housing being built, but without the mix of housing to address everyone's needs, then you're not gonna, we actually experienced quite an increase in homelessness.
So at 7 a.m. on Thursday, I had the hospital authority meeting, and there's actually 5 people on that board. So, and Robert Tindall attends that meeting with us as a representative of the finance for the county. So it was a great meeting. And then walking out, I heard from Tom Schnell, who works with Business Oregon, that now the rental vacancy for apartments in Bend is now up to 11%. According to my calculations with my conversation with Bill Kuhn, it's we have 1,500 to 2,000 more apartments coming on. But I am hearing that some landlords are renegotiating, and that's what I'm trying to get out to people. If you're a good renter and you pay on time, please go and talk to your landlord, because I feel like the market is really getting flooded. That I heard someone was making significant reductions in their rate of rent, and that will help so many people with paying for food, because inflation is so it's so awful right now. So anyway, that was, it's gone up. It was 8.7, I believe, in October, and that was historically incredibly high. But Tom said it was actually up to 11% now. Because remember, the last number that Bill Kuhn gave us in our meeting was they joined it with Redmond. Well, Redmond still is on a different track at the moment, but they even have a lot of apartments, multi-unit apartments coming in. So that was it. And then we had the health council meeting in La Pine. And then we did a facilities review committee, which I did on my phone. So, yeah, it's been a busy time. So any other points of today? So let's adjourn until we have our meeting on Wednesday at 9 a.m., correct? Is it okay? Friday's another, oh, it's a dedication Friday, not any dirt, but dedication. Okay, wonderful. Thank you all. Thank you, Brenda.